Welcome to the Purposeful Path. We meet once a month and we have these little Zoom interactions, and we come to the table with things that, you know, things that we are ready to change, things that we want, and then also knowing that we always get exactly what we need, and it might not always be what we want. But um yeah, it's just recognizing what that is. Okay, so today's topic, when I was meditating this morning, today's topic was all about alignment, being in alignment. And then as I was getting ready, uh I realized that maybe I needed to share a little bit about maybe I needed to share a little bit about my story. And you know, um, I feel like I've said my story so many times, and when we tell our story, just the fact that when we want to tell a story, we have to recall the events. When we recall the events, we're recreating we're recreating the energy in order to be able to recall the events, or to be able to recall the story. And once we start doing that, the body doesn't know time. All it does is it hears everything that we tell it. So when we tell it, hey, I'm in the middle of this horrible situation I found myself in my life, the body starts to respond as if it's currently happening, because that's what the body does. It doesn't know that we're talking about the past. It doesn't know that we're talking about the future. It just responds to what we say. So, um, I am going to tell my story without going into the energy of it. It's like this. It's like the energy of it is like a cloud floating by. The energy of my story is like a cloud floating by, and I could just look at it and acknowledge that, yeah, that's part of my story, and let it go by. Or I can look at it, grab it, hold it, try and pull it down into myself, and like, and let it cause all this stuff again in my life. So let's see how this works. Let's see how it works. All right. I read this thing or heard this thing this morning. It was so funny. Is that the biggest disease in America is that everyone wants to be special. True. I've had no shortage of mediums, astrologers, psychics tell me how special I am. And I think part of us, you know, we're like, oh, really? Oh, I have what? I can do what? Part of us like gets excited about that. But then as you forge along, as you keep going on your path, you start to realize that everybody is special. And the thing that I want to do in this group is to not create this space of hierarchy, right? Where one person is like telling everybody else what to do. That's not what I'm interested in. Headarchy is like we're all special in our unique ways, and we all belong linear. We all are the same. We might be at different places, but we're all the same. We're all the same. So part of this, part of this place is like, okay, I want to create something for women to come together and to uplift each other, and to like not have a dumping ground, because that doesn't get us anywhere. Creating a space for people to come and complain and tell us how horrible their lives are, that doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't do anything, but it starts to create, oh yeah, that's right, my everything's horrible in my life. Eh, not interested in that. I don't want us to do that here. What I really want this space to be as a place where, like, oh man, okay, I had a little challenge this week. I had a little challenge this month, but you know what? Here's what I did. I sat with it. I let it work through my body. I went and did something, a physical act to work it out through my body. And now I feel good. Now I'm ready to share what I want to do. Okay, so my story. I'm plugging along, doing mortgage at Wells Fargo, just like everybody else. 9 to 5 job. Um, I'd been married to my husband for 4 months, and we're starting to experience things with the kids, going back and forth between their dad's house and um, Chris and I's house, my husband's and my house. We started to experience these really interesting things that were happening where, it was like there was something inside of me that knew that my son would struggle when he came here, and my daughter would struggle when she went there. And it was like just making a note of it. And then one day in particular, my son was leaving to go to football practice, and he was getting picked up by his dad, and I was having this conversation with his dad about our daughter being mistreated at his house. And yeah, it was strange. It was like, for every reason my son belonged with his father, my daughter belonged with me. Yeah. It's a hard thing to admit as a parent. So my son got in the car. There were words, being said, and um, this is what happens when we tell our story. We pull it down and we start to feel it, and it's like, oh, it's tricky. And I don't want this to be the end of my story. But when my son got in the car and he drove away, and my husband was sitting on the front porch next to my daughter, and I walked, I walked back into our house, and I was like, I just lost Dylan forever. And it was the strangest feeling. It was like the universe, it was like my world had just like went up, shifted, and slammed back down so hard. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So that was like February, March of 2011. And while I knew that while I knew that something big was happening, at the same time, my son, when he got in the car, his father told him, "You're living with me now, and that's it." And I think we all felt it. We didn't need to talk about it. It was like, I knew no matter what I did, as far as going to the courts, fighting, hiring another attorney, all that stuff, I knew whatever I was going to attempt to do, it wasn't going to work. I just knew God had come into my life, and he was like, look, this is the way it's going to be. And I didn't accept it. I didn't want to accept it. So it took a few months for for this like for this guy to let me see my son, which is sounds so ridiculous. And I gotta tell you, if you ever do that, if you ever find yourself in this space where you want to um withhold a child from your spouse, the ramifications of that are so gnarly, like so gnarly. I would never want that on my hands at all. Okay, so what did I do? What did I do? This was 2011, and the only thing I could do is when everyone went to sleep in my house, the only thing I could do was stay up late, sit on the couch, and have this visualization of um a, like a couch in the clouds. And I would do this every night, and I would call to my son. I would call to him, and I would be sitting on the couch, and he would come in, and he'd stick his head in my armpit. God, just our abilities are alone are so amazing. The fact that you can be with somebody when they're being withheld, here on earth, you can be with them in other realms. It's all you gotta do is like try it. So this little kid, he just tell me about his day, and I could feel him and he could feel me. And I knew it. And that brought me comfort, it brought me some sort of comfort. So the first time I got to see him, mind you, this was February, March. The first time I got to see him was Mother's Day, um, was Mother's Day weekend. And the rule, whatever was, I got him for four. I think I got him for 4 hours. So we picked him up. We picked him up and we went out to this. I just like, oh my gosh, I have to create something fun for this kid to want to be with me. I have to make sure that he just wants to, be with me. So we got in the car, and there was another family we were gonna go meet, and my son knew this other family, so we were gonna go, out to this farm and have this, fun day, picnic, ride bikes, be outside. We actually shot guns, which is so weird. But anything, I wanted to do anything to make that kid want to be with me, you know. Um, and as we were as we were driving there, he gave me a Mother's Day card that it was just a lined piece of paper that he, had written out. And he said, "Oh, something about me being his favorite mom." And then on the inside it said, "I get your hugs every day." So that's kind of the end of my story. Not really. But there's something in that knew what I was doing at that moment was going to be like everything was going to be okay. I just had to learn how to accept the fact that my son was going to live there, my daughter was going to live here, and um we're just going to like this is going to be our new normal. And that's what we did. That's what we did. We all did our best with whatever kind of with whatever we're dealt with. We just kind of do our best. So that's kind of how I started to meditate. That's how I started to meditate. That's how I got into all the things that I got into is I just would go like from one thing to the next, and it seemed like that I was just like jumping from one thing to the next, but it was like it was it was a guided leap. It wasn't like I was like willy-nilly. Sometimes it felt like that, but for the most part, it was like something would present itself and I would be like, yeah, sure, I'll jump into that. Okay. So I just would do that. So that after about a year of my son being gone, my body like physically started to shut down. I couldn't walk up the stairs. It was getting tested for all these like ailments, fibromyalgia and all these stupid things where the causes are unknown. And that's when you know it's emotional. Because when we have tests and the causes are physical, like when you like take a test, it's either positive, negative, and that's the way it is. You know what you got and off you go. That's one thing. But when you take all these tests and there's all these diseases that they created where if you look at the cause is unknown, it's emotional. Just saying. It's emotional. And this was truly for me. It's truly emotional. So um so I tried everything. And then I was sitting in the doctor's office. We're going through all these tests. We're sitting in the doctor's office. And then all of a sudden, the doctor comes in. Well, we can try and test for this. And I said to the doctor, I didn't say, something said through me in my voice, can't you see I'm dying of a broken heart? And it was like the light bulb went on. It was something like, first of all, I was like, who said that? And second of all, it was like, oh my gosh, that is so true. My heart is so broken. I was struggling. And at this point, it was almost a whole year. Almost a whole year had gone by. And I was just grieving for a child that I lost but was still alive. And so it was a really tricky thing to navigate. I couldn't sort it out. Like just like it wasn't I couldn't do it. I was like none of it made sense. It hurt so bad. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Okay. So then what? So one night I'm sitting on my couch and I'm doing my practice and I've got, my son sitting in there and this is what you call a dark night of the soul. I think I was on my knees just doing that convulsive cry, just begging for some sort of understanding or relief. I was begging for something or like something. So I'm like switching positions, like I'm curled up in a ball on the couch, bawling, like just bawling so loud but can't make any noise because my husband and my daughter are asleep. And then I figure, okay, wait, I'm gonna get on my knees. I'm gonna get on my knees and pray. I'm gonna put my hands together and get on my knees and pray and see, and as I was doing that, I heard this noise outside. It's like, what is that? And it like, it kind of stopped. It stopped everything. It stopped everything that I was doing. It stopped the crying. It was like, what is that? And I got quiet for a second and I heard it again. It's like, oh my gosh, that's an owl. It's an owl outside in the tree across the street. And he's calling to me and he's telling me it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And that was really cool. So I settled down a little bit. I woke up the next morning and I had a friend living across the street. And so I told her like the whole experience. She was like, you know what you got to do? You got to go over to this lady. She does like intuitive readings and she does energy healing. Like energy healing, what's that? I don't care what it is. I was so desperate. I was desperate and I needed something. I needed something. I needed something. Oh my gosh, I thought I was gonna die. I really thought I was dying. But it was just a broken heart, you know? So I went to that session and this was January 2012 now. In January 2012, and I went to that session and I was laying on the table. Energy healing, when you do an energy healing session, it's a lot like what you would do if you're going to get a massage, but you keep your clothes on and you get under the covers and you get all snuggly and warm and um but what happened was like I'm laying there and then all of a sudden like the roof cracks open and I start to hear this voice. And it was like the voice of God. And at first, I was really mad. I was like, who are you and where have you been? Because I've been suffering. And that voice didn't really answer those questions. But what that voice did do was like, tell me how to heal the body. Tell me like how the body stores things in certain places and it, like energy and get stuck. And I'm like, wait, what? So what I was doing, what this woman was doing was a Reiki, right? Reiki energy healing session on me. So every place that she touched, I would have a visual of a person or something. I would have this visualization, and that visualization led me to like an intuitive knowingness of what gets stored in the left knee, what gets stored in the right knee, what gets stored in our shoulders, what gets stored in our heart. And I was like, "Oh, this is so crazy cool," you know. And then when we finished, that session, you know, then I did like an intuitive, you know, oh, you're meant to be this great teacher of peace and love in the world. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't know what that means, but all right. So what I did after that was I learned how to do Reiki. I learned everything there was to know about Reiki. I think I got like 12 certificates. I just kept going to class after class after class. This Reiki, Asui Tibetan Reiki, Karuna Reiki, um, Kundalini Reiki, like you name it. I was like, I could not get enough of anything. I just was like started to be a sponge and like just soaking up everything I could soak up. And and then that's really where like things started to change. I worked on people and I did Reiki sessions on people, but what I really loved most was about sharing the information and teaching people about it, you know, just teaching people about energy healing. So that just led me, you know, I think after I learned that, it was just like just jumping from one thing to the next, and that led to um doing yoga teacher training, because you just like once you're a sponge and you're starting to soak up information, you always just feel like there's something else out there. You feel like there's more, or it's like, oh well, you've given me a little bit of information. What am I going to do? Okay, maybe I'll try this and I'll try that. And I was never I never was afraid to to try something new. I was just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I did yoga teacher training, and then there was a part of the yoga teacher training where um where we got into the mythology of yoga and the poses and the mythology of these Hindu gods and goddesses. And I was really intrigued by that. I was like, ooh, I want to know more about that. And halfway through my training, my grandfather, this is another crazy one. So my grandfather, he lived about 2 miles, 2 hours away. And he was, 93 and he's getting old. And I was the only family that he really communicated with that loved him unconditionally. And God, he was a great man. And I have his eyes, and he's right there, in this beautiful picture. And he watches over everything I do. Let's see if I can show you. Oh, that's my grandpa right there. My daughter actually painted that for me after he passed away. So, Grandpa Herb. So, I was going up to see my grandpa, and kind of I get there at whatever 4:30, and he's like, well, I guess we should go to dinner. Okay. So at 4 it's like so funny. So we sit down at dinner, and I snap a picture of him. Because I texted it to my siblings. I'm like, who eats dinner at, 5 o'clock? Oh well, this girl does. So we're sitting there, and I open up my menu, and I just hear that voice that I heard that day in Reiki. And I hear that voice, and that voice says, what would you order? What would you order with your last dinner with your grandpa? Shrimp. I would order shrimp. Okay. And the voice, when it comes, it's not just accepting the fact that I can hear it and I acknowledge it. Um, I don't say anything, I just keep it to myself. But all of a sudden, just knowing that if that were true, then I better pay attention to every little thing that's said. So he talked about politics. He commented on how big this guy at the other table was. How do you let yourself go like that? And he's so loud. I'm like, oh my God, stop it, Grandpa, stop it. But we finished our dinner, and I stayed the night. We had a Bailey's on the rocks, as we always did at the end of the night. And I, you know, I was, I think I was halfway done. I think I was halfway done with yoga teacher training. You do 100 hours, you take a couple of weeks off, and you do another 100 hours. And my grandpa had actually paid for me to do the training. So, oh no, it was before I even started the training. It was a week before, and I was like, Grandpa, I'm going to go into this training. I'm not going to be able to come up to see you, so I'm going to come see you now. And then off we go. So, so I had that moment. I said goodbye. I said, okay, I'll be back, in a few months after I'm done with the yoga teacher training, and we'll, continue our lives together. So we're in that break period where I finished the first part, and I'm talking to my grandpa on the phone, and he's saying the same thing. I'm so tired, I'm so weak, I'm so shaky. Blah, 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 blah. It's the same story over and over and over again. And this was a Sunday night, and I'm talking to him on the phone, and I said, well, But he had gone to the doctor on Friday and they'd give him some new medicine. He called it his happy pills. So it was like, so I talked to him on Sunday night and he was asking me how the training was. And it's like, oh my gosh, I really enjoy it. It's like, it really feels like it's part of my future. I feel like I finally found something, that will be part of my future. Okay. Thank you so much, Grandpa, for believing in me and, you know, offering to pay for me to do this. So this was Sunday night. Tuesday morning, I get a phone call. It's from the San Bernardino Fire Department fire chief. Hey, Herb Jennings, yes. When was the last time you talked to him? Sunday night. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I don't even know what he said. Your Who is he? Grandfather. I'm sorry to tell you, your grandfather's gone. Oh, that's weird. Because I had that moment where, what would you order with your last meal with your grandpa? And I consulted a medium or psychic or somebody that, has these special gifts. And I consulted that person and I said, hey, I had this weird thing happen. And they were like, oh no, he's got 5 more years. I'm like, damn, 5 more years? Okay. Um, but you see what happens to us? We give our power away. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust what we know, or we don't trust what we truly feel. And oh my gosh, I was right. That was the last dinner with my grandpa. And it wasn't about being right or wrong, but it was about trusting the inner knowingness that we have. So, um, so then, I'm I go outside, I tell my husband, Grandpa's gone, we gotta go up there. Okay, so I'm getting ready, I take a shower, and then I get a phone call, and it's from the woman across the street. And she had kind of been looking after him. Um, she had been checking in on him, taking him down, the hill to get his oxygen and doing all this stuff because he lived in the mountains. So she calls me and she's like, "Oh, Ryan, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I was like thanking her for being so kind to him. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have known. God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And she just keeps on. So I should have known. So she tells me about my grandpa's last day. And then I guess this was Monday. The last time she saw him was Monday. And then Monday night, he grabbed his 22 and he went outside and was just done. And the first thing I thought was, did me telling him that I'd figured out what I was going to do with my life, and then I told him I was okay, was that his moment to say, okay, my work here's done, see ya? You know? So So then I go outside and tell my husband again, like, oh my God, he actually did it himself. It wasn't natural. So we're driving We're driving up to grandpa's and I get another phone call and it's from the coroner. And the coroner says, yeah, so, it's we have to take we have to take the guns out of the house. My grandpa was an avid hunter, we gotta take all the guns out of the house unless you can promise me that you're gonna come up here. And I'm like, I'm an hour and a half away. Um, I promise you that I will take the guns, or do something with the guns when I get there. But they did take the one that my grandpa used. And then the last thing he said to me was like, I hate to tell you this. I'm really sorry to have to tell you this, but we're not a cleanup crew. We, oh God. Okay. So all I could think about was like, we gotta go to the store. I gotta get gloves. Chris, we gotta stop. I gotta get gloves. I gotta get all these things. And we're gonna have to big old mess to clean up. It's like, I don't know that I was prepared. I don't think I was prepared to see that. I don't think I was prepared to see whatever. But the mind is like, oh, it's gonna take you down all these things. Oh my God, you're gonna have to scrub blood off the walls and stuff. And then we get there, and the woman across the street comes out, and we hug, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, and she's so sorry, and she's the one that actually found him and called, the the police or whatever, the ambulance. And so I went inside and I was like looking all around, and I was like, oh my gosh, where was he? And in the kindest, most thoughtful thing possible, he actually went outside. And my husband just grabbed the hose and he just washed it, you know, washed the little bits and pieces of our physical body. And I would just remember, all I can remember is looking at my husband and being so grateful for him at that moment. And I just remember looking down, and somehow I was standing because I didn't want to get close. I was like standing on the side of the house and just watching my grandpa's blood washed down the drain. So wildlife. And I tell you, I went back to complete my, my second half of yoga teacher training, and I finished and I did all that. I never wanted to teach yoga at all. But there was something really cool about the mythology of it. And so the mythology of the mythology of yoga and learning about the poses in yoga, because yoga, comes from the Hindu tradition, the yogic path and all. So I really that was intrigued by that. And now because my grandpa was gone, he left me some money, and I started to travel, and I think I went to India for the first time, maybe. Oh, my grandpa passed away. It was like leap day, leap day. And so what is that? Oh, February 29th. Um, and so I went to India in July for my first time, and I stepped off the plane and I was like, oh my God, I've been here before. I'd never been there this life, but I had been there before and I knew it and I could feel it, and nothing was gonna take that away. So I did that. I went to India and I met people and I had experiences, and they were crazy experiences. I knew that in that trip, like I knew I had an issue with my right breast. Um, I knew that there was just like so many things that had happened. It was such a beautiful experience, and so many women, that I was with, and I saw things that just the average person will never, ever, ever see. Um, and that trip led to um, meetings of people in India, and then I wound up going to Nepal in a few months later, and then I went back to India. I went back to India, and I went back to India 9 times because in India there was this guru, Sri Shakti Amma, who the first time I stood in front of Amma, Amma means mother, but Amma in our physical realm, Amma's appearance is a male body, but very much feminine energy. And Amma, like I said, Amma means mother. So the first time I met Amma, oh my God, the way Amma smiled at me, it was like I'd had this whole flashes of my life and me like searching for my mother. Are you my mother? Are you my mother? And it's the weirdest thing when things make sense to you, when you realize things that you've done all along your life, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this my whole life. I've always been searching for this my whole life, but it doesn't hit you until it hits you, you know? So I realized there was this cartoon when I was a kid, and it was like, I think it was like a duck. Um, it was a duck, and it would walk around, a baby duck, and like, are you my mother? Are you my mother? Because it couldn't find its mother. And it's like, I'm not talking about a physical mother. I'm not talking about who we're born to, but I'm talking about a mother. A true mother is a feminine energy that gives you and shows you unconditional love. Period. That's it. So that's what Amma was for me, is this being, an avatar, but this being that was showing me unconditional love, and at the same time teaching me things that I was like, wait. So I met Amma. I had the most incredible experiences, things that like I never even told anybody because they're so like, no one would ever believe it. And then I went to met people, and then went to Nepal and walked that Annapurna circuit, you know, in the Himalayas. And then I just went from, and I went from thing to thing. And when things would get tricky at that time, when I couldn't understand what the divine was trying to get me to do, I couldn't understand like what I was here for, like what the heck, I would just jump on a plane and I would just go find myself in India. Um, I started to want to teach people about Amma, and I wanted to do that. So I brought people with me, and that was it was a thing. It was, I wanted people to experience what I knew and loved, but not everyone did, and or they weren't doing it the way I was telling them to do it, so that was getting frustrating. I wasn't being very unconditionally loving, that's for sure. But the cool part is as I was going out and I was experiencing these things, like my kids were okay, my husband was amazing, like life was just happening, and I was pulling myself out of life, going and learning stuff, and then inserting myself back into my life and going like, okay, I'm gonna try this now, and okay, I'm gonna do this now. And so that's, that's really what I how I've been living my life for the last, I don't know, 13 years. It's just 14 years. Just going from like one thing to the next. Or it looks like that on the outside, but on the inside, it was like, when we get uncomfortable and when we're not sure what we're supposed to do, we like I I have this need to want to create. So I would just create something, and then as it was being created, I would put it out there and I would do whatever it is that I just created. I would normally do it once, and then and it would just end. And gosh, okay. No matter what I did, I knew that I would create something once and it would just end. It's a little bit like this group. I did all the work to get this group going. And there's actually only, I mean, there's what, 8 people that are signed up for it, but I'm still sitting here on the day that we're meant to meet, and it's just me, right? And that's when I know that's Mariah creating something versus the divine saying, hey, kid, sit back, relax, we'll bring you what we want you to do. Okay, I'll do that. But it's this thing, inside of me is like I have this desire to help people, and especially when I'm in this space with people and they tell me, what's going on, I can hear how to help them, or I have a sense or a knowingness on how to help them, which has led to two things in my life. One, feeling super blessed, but two, feeling really like, am I really helping that person by not letting them or giving them space to just like dump all the stuff on me? Because what started to happen is like I could feel it all. And then I would come home and I'd be like, oh, like, is this really what God wants me to do? I knew I wanted to be of service, but I was sacrificing. I wasn't serving anybody. I certainly wasn't serving myself. I was just sacrificing myself. I was sacrificing myself, and like, oh my gosh, I don't think this is helping anybody. But we just keep at it. And so, you know, I found myself being in these really interesting positions in India, and like just being in these like sweet spots. And I'm like looking around, I was like, God, it's just me doing this thing. It's so cool. No one would ever believe this. So, trip number 9. No, maybe like, oh, this is a good one. Okay, like trip 6. Trip 6. I'm there. I've got a group of 4 people with me, and we're having to stay in a different place than we normally stay because there's a bunch of doctors from all over the world that were there to meet Alma. And um I've gotten called to go to Alma's house, and but it was only me, and the my group that was with me wasn't invited to come. And oh, that was really tricky. It's like, oh wait, oh my gosh, like no, they have to come. I brought them all the way to India, and now they're not going to go and sit and listen to talk or whatever. It was like I didn't know what was happening at the time. I kind of got a sense of what's happening now when I reflect back. But so I'm sitting there and I'm like looking around. It's like, why am I here with these doctors, from all over the place? And then this woman starts talking to me, and she's I guess maybe that might be the end of my story. I'm not sure if this is going to keep going on or not. So she's got an accent, and this accent. So I'm pondering like what just happened. Maybe I'm just supposed to stop talking. I don't really know. Yeah, I guess maybe that's the end. I'm not going to tell you that story. So, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. Am I going to post it? Am I going to make this available to people to watch? Are people going to watch? Um, I don't really know. Um, but that's how it all began for me. It's where it started. It's it's been a beautiful life. It's been an incredible experience to realize that when things don't take off for you, it's it's our I think it's our thing to go back inside and go like, okay, maybe I just have to readjust or reconfigure what it is that I thought I was going to do, and let the divine come in and show me what really needs to be created. And I think that's what's happening with this group, is that, that was Mariah being like, okay, Mariah, you're going to do this thing. And because I feel like I have so many things that I want to do and to create. And then at the same time, um, the universe saves me from myself and says, um, good job on creating this, but here's what we want you to do, or here's where you would be best of service. And so it's a journey of continuing to follow that. I love you all, and I'm not sure where this is going, but I don't know. That's where it all started with me. All right, you guys. Peace and love.